Hi everyone, it's Adam with Milo's Restoration, and today I've got a antique vanity that I found at a thrift store, and it had been kind of staring me in the face for a while. They really wanted me to take it, and I thought it would be a lot of work, so originally I just didn't want to, but I got convinced to take it, and so here we are. Um, I figured it was kind of a mix of uh, antique, walnut and mahogany, and it turned out to be a lot of different things. But I decided to strip the finish off first from the top just to kind of get an idea with what I was working with so I could pick up a roll of veneer for the next day. So just if you're in case you're wondering what that is in that bucket that I use to clean my citrus strip off with, a lot of people use a lot of different products, lacquer thinner, mineral spirits, really just about anything will work. But I like isopropyl alcohol, just 99% general cleaner, and you get it from a hardware store or anything like that where they sell finishing products at. It's commonly used to thin shellac. So I made multiple passes over it with citrus strip. Probably took me about two passes on every area. And then I went over it with alcohol and the bronze wool, which is just steel wool, but it's, brass or whatever, copper. And I cleaned everything off again. It's really just important to, every time that I wipe it, I'll change my alcohol out, and you need to have clean alcohol for doing this. Um, Otherwise, you're just going to be, basically putting the dye back into the wood. So I'm just kind of getting my substrate ready for the veneer here. I'm going to use some mahogany veneer, and I'm going to use high bond adhesive, and I'll just cut it kind of roughly to size, and then lay it on top of some sticks and let it sit for 2 minutes, and then try my best to get it. If you have pressure sensitive adhesive, that is way better than this, because once this is once this is tacked down, it's pretty much done. And if you have any pressure sensitive adhesive, like somewhere that you can find it, that's definitely way better to use. So I'll actually use like a wallpaper smoother or something like that to come back and do my final pass on it to smooth it out. If you have a pressure roller, that works way better too for getting the bumps out. Just getting everything sanded. I used probably 240 and then came back with 180 hand sanding. Make sure I get all the swirls out. As I sand it, I'll also intermediately clean it off with lacquer thinner just to try to dissolve any, last dyes or anything else that remained on the piece. So I'm just raising the grain here. I'm going to be using a water-based dye and a water-based sealer and top coat. So just a good idea to go ahead and get the grain raised. That way you don't have any raised grain whenever after you dye it. So, sometimes people will comment or, not even necessarily on my videos because I don't really have a whole lot of followers, but other people that bigger channels and they'll say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do it this way? You know, particularly when it comes to like batching out things, like, you know, people think that there has to be like a certain way or an order that you do things in. And really, I don't find that to be the case at all. I think that for me, in my small workshop, that's actually a garage, it's just way better for me to work in small pieces and put everything back together as I'm doing it. That way I have less of a mess. And if you have a larger workshop, then I could see how, production is really important. But I really don't enjoy this if I make a mess all over the place. So, I took apart this mirror rack. I'm going to put it back together after this. And I'm going to remount everything and have it all in place and spray it at the same time. Because I just don't like to have everything in pieces laying around my shop tripping over stuff. Just some brown mahogany trans tint and water. Just mix it up, and that's what I'm going to use for my dye stain. I'm not doing a seal coat on this piece because I really want to get the color as deep as I can. And these aren't really blotch prone woods. So I probably put about 2 or 3 coats of that dye stain on. It looks pretty consistent. That's really what matters. Okay, so now these drawers needed work, and I decided that since I was probably done finishing for the day, this would be a good time to do this. If I, ding the drawer fronts of the stain a little bit, I could always come back and fix it before the top coat's put on. So what I used is some lacquer thinner and a vacuum, cleaned out the drawers really well, and then I came back with some Restore Finish. The color doesn't really matter. I just had golden oak laying around, so that's what I used. And just put a coat of that on and just let them dry. I really did clean them really well though, so that's another thing. And also I cleaned the interiors too because it was pretty disgusting. So I had a drawer on the bottom that really did not close very well, and I kind of discovered that that was because the bottom of the box of the drawer box was bowed out. So I just put a bunch of clamps on it, pulled it back in, used some hide glue, came back the next morning, pulled the clamps. This usually takes about 12 hours to dry, so if you touch hide glue the next morning and it's still tacky, don't be surprised. And then I used a little bit of dye. I filled in a lot of those areas that looked pretty bad with the wood filler, and then they'll look a lot better when the finish coat is on. So this is Evo Gemini. It's a water-based lacquer. It's kind of new to me, not really new to finishing though. It's been out for a little while now. It's it's Gemini's water-based lacquer. I tried it and I liked it a lot more than Duralac, so I'm gonna give it a shot. And I'm just setting my turbine pressure here, and I'm probably gonna put it up about 60% on the control knob anyway. I don't actually know what that equivocates to on that little green bar right there. So this is the top coat for that system. I'm just going to add a little bit of brown mahogany dye to it. Not too much. I'm not trying to make it too dark. Just mix it up for a minute. And I gave everything kind of a quick sand with a 400 grit pad. I went with a super fine pad by Surf Prep for the final coat. It's probably somewhere around 500 or 600 grit. So there's like a mil limit, like most lacquers with this one, and I really don't feel like I had a hard time with that just because this lacquer is pretty high quality and it's pretty easy to spray and apply. The only thing is that obviously the grain from the mahogany and from the walnut definitely is evident, and if you were going for like a high gloss finish, you'd probably have to probably put a couple coats of sealer on to fill that grain up. These are just some little kind of like acrylic crystal type knobs that I found at Lowe's. I thought that they looked a little bit better than the other ones did, so that's what I went with. So I wanted to find some mirror clips somewhere, but I just don't really have any at my local hardware store. I'm probably gonna have to wait till Monday, and I can get one from like a cabinet store or something like that. So for now, I'm just using those pieces of red oak and getting the mirror cleaned up and ready to put back on. Here's the final vanity, and thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you want to see more painting and restoration content.